What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back with our first MLB video of the year. Top 10 players by position 2025. Ethan and I are going to be breaking it down, catcher through DH, and then we're going to do pitching in another video. But let's jump into it here. My top 10, here it is. I think the top four, I think, could be reorganized in any order, depending on player preference. I just think Contreras had a really good year last year and kind of was the heartbeat of the Brewers lineup. And he means more to his team than those other three. And I think that matters in these kind of rankings. So I'm putting Contreras at one. Adley, obviously, switch hitting catcher, all-star for years to come. Will Smith, I think, is the most underappreciated catcher in MLB because he's on the Dodgers. The Dodgers obviously are loaded, and what he does every year, very consistent, plays 140 plus games and hits what, 260, 270 every year with like 20, 25 home runs. So what
Yep.
he does is very consistent for the Dodgers lineup. And then having Salvi and JT in here kind of feels like a blast from the past. These two have obviously fallen off a little bit, but they are still very good defensively. And I think that speaks volumes to why they're still on this list. They have gotten worse hitting, at least JT has. Perez is actually hitting better than he has in his last few years. And then you
Mhm.
have other guys, newcomers like Austin Wells, Alejandro Kirk, and Francisco Alvarez that just cracked the top 10 here. And I think those guys are probably poised for a bigger year. And I'm loving Francisco Alvarez in a deeper lineup this year for the Mets.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Pretty solid top 10. As for me, I also have basically, yeah, I have Adley and Cal switched, but other than that, I think you had Yainer Diaz at five, switch with JT. I just think, I mean, the consistency every year that JT Remuto puts up, just consistent numbers every year. Salvi, gonna be a Hall of Famer. Got to keep him on this list. Still hits bombs and still plays really good defense. So, I mean, respect for that. Logan O'Hoppe, I have entering the top 10. Had a great year last year. I think this year, this is more of a projection based here. So I think he's going to have a pretty solid year and land in that top 10. And then I have Austin Wells and Gabriel Marino. And then I also have Alvarez, uh, Francisco Alvarez as my honorable mention along with Sean Murphy. I just think this is a solid list. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the catchers are probably one of the hardest to rank just because there's so many different aspects you can look at. Same kind of for first base. I mean, if you look at defensive run save, obviously Freddie Freeman is a top fielder. Um,
Yep.
and then you
Same with
look,
Matt Olson.
yeah, Matt Olson's good. Pete Alonso is willing to put his body on the line. And then I think Bryce Harper is an up and coming first baseman, I guess you could say, just because he's only played this position for what, a year and a half now.
Hmm.
And I think he's probably going to spend his rest of his career there. But Freddie at number one, I think for me, it makes too much sense because this dude was a huge signing for the Dodgers, and what he did in his first year a few years ago was just great. Then obviously the Braves getting Matt Olson after replacing Freddie, and really they've been almost identical in production. And I think it's been a big win for the Braves there. But Vladdy at three, I think he could definitely be one. But I just think those two other guys in front of him have better track records than Vladdy does right now. Pete Alonso re-signing with the Mets is huge, not just for the Mets, but for his career as well. I think he's going to mash even more in a loaded lineup, kind of like Alvarez. Christian Walker, I think, could be top three by the end of the year if we really look at it, especially with that short porch now in Houston that he gets to hit into where Arizona was, I think they're 340, 345 down left field line. Now you're going to 310. You're definitely going to hit a few more home runs there at home. And then Yandy Diaz doesn't get enough appreciation out in Tampa because it is a small market. So I love his game and what he's been doing the last few years. And then I rounded out with Naylor, Lau, and Pasquantino. If Pasquantino can stay healthy, I wouldn't be shocked if he finishes as a top five first baseman this year. He's proven that he can hit bombs and be very reliable in that Royals lineup.
All right. As for me, I got Bryce Harper at number one. I feel like these are all very tough rankings. At least the top three. You can kind of put any order you want with those three guys, but after that, I think it's Pete Alonso, Matt Olson. I believe that's just like what you had. Christian Walker, Yandy Diaz. I had Tristan Casas in there. I think he's going to have a big year this year in that Boston lineup. With the addition of Bregman, I think that's going to help out. If he just stays healthy, this dude's going to mash. And then I got Wilson Contreras in that top 10, and Josh Naylor just, I mean, he usually just hits the ball hard. And then I know Christian Encarnacion Strand probably not going to be starting for the Reds this year, but you got to watch out for him still. Big time pop. And then Goldie, I feel like he should probably be in this, moving to New York. And then Michael Bush, also, this is a projection base. I mean, he mashed last year too in Chicago. So I think these some big years coming up for a few of these guys for sure.
Yeah, second baseman, I think Ketel Marte, Jose Altuve, and Simeon should be in the top three in almost everyone's rankings. I think that's kind of where the top tier. And then you get that middle tier guy where Ozzie Albies, when he had that 2021 year, he could easily be number one. Nico Horner, Brandon Lau, Bryce Turang, Matt McClain. I think 5 to 8 for any of those guys is very fair, especially Turang. I think, he's only been in the league for half a year. What he can do moving forward for the Brewers is going to kind of depend on how this Brewers team is going to play out with some of their other rookies like Garrett Mitchell. And then I have Gleyber Torres and Jazz Chisholm rounding it out at 9 and 10. Gleyber going from New York to Detroit on a 1 year deal. I think that'll be interesting to see how he plays in Detroit, if they're going to keep him for the year, maybe extend him in the offseason or even trade him depending on how the Tigers do. Then Jazz Chisholm moving back to second base now that Torres is gone. The outfield, third base didn't really, I mean, it wasn't bad, but he's more comfortable at second, and the Yankees are liking that. And some guys that are missing, I think Andres Jimenez is a very good player. He's in Toronto now. I'm surprised Cleveland got rid of him in the first
Mhm.
place, but I guess they are tired of kind of getting eliminated early in the playoffs, and so they're trying to make some move, make the roster up. Tyler Fitzgerald's a good person out there in San Francisco. Not enough games we've seen him play, but I think he can be up and coming. And then Jonathan India, all he's got to do is stay healthy, and this dude's probably cracking my top 10 at the end of the year.
Yeah, and as for me, I have Albies and Simeon, I believe, swish, but obviously Ketel Marte clearly number one, Altuve clearly number two. I got Brandon Lau sneaking into the top five, and then I have Nico Horner, Jazz Chisholm, Matt McClain, Gavin Lux, and Luis Garcia Jr. He had a big year last year, and looking to expand on that. I like the Nationals a lot this year as well. In that loaded, it's a loaded division, but they could be one of those sneaky teams. And then like you said, Jonathan India and Andres Jimenez also just missed for me. But definitely India both of these guys could be cracking the top 10, just depending on where we go in the season.
Then moving to third base, you got Jose Ramirez, Devers, Machado, I think in everybody's top three. Makes too much sense there. Ramirez, obviously the power numbers just keep surging. The consistency is there, defense is there. And for me, he's number one. The way he's played, not just the last year or two, but I think his whole career, the most underappreciated third baseman that we've seen in a while. And he just continues to rake fantasy aspect. Get this guy when you can, if he's there in your first round, if you don't know who to pick. One of the most reliable guys you can get. And then you have 4, 5, and 6. Bregman signing with the Red Sox. Obviously, him and Devers probably going to split time at third. Who knows how that's going to go? Bregman
Mhm.
might move to second. So right now, I'm
Yeah.
ranking him in my sixth spot in the third base rankings. And then I think 7 through 10, you could probably rank that 7 through 12 with Caminero and Arenado. I think you can put any of these guys in here. But I think the one to really look out for is Mark Vientos. Like, I'm high on the Mets this year just because how can you not be after adding Soto, making all these moves to
Right.
go at it again this year and be that top contender to the Dodgers. But if anyone that isn't appreciated enough, it's probably Jordan Westburg in that loaded Orioles lineup. They have Adley. The whole outfield is great. Then obviously everyone talks about Jackson Holiday, but people forget about Jordan Westburg and what he did last year and his half a season as well was very good. And I think he's only going to continue to build on that.
As for my third base rankings, in the top 10, I got obviously J Ram, Devers. Didn't really talk about Devers, but this guy just mashes. I mean, defense isn't the best, but it's really not bad. You're gonna take that every year when he's hitting 35 bombs and 100 plus RBIs. So Austin Riley, I believe we have 4 and 5 switched, and then Breggy at 6. I mean, I like Royce Lewis a lot too. Dude, he's just a dog, but never can stay healthy. So need him to stay healthy this year. I got Max Muncy. This guy can just, I mean, he rakes too for the Dodgers. And then we got Mark Vientos at number 9, like you said, and Josh Young to round out the top 10. And then I have Jordan Westberg and Eugenio Suarez. There's a lot of guys that could be there.
Then moving to shortstop. one of the most loaded positions I think we've seen in recent years. Now Mookie officially moving to short, and I have him over Bobby Witt. I just think that what Mookie can do, not even just at shortstop, but at any position, most probably best utility player we've ever seen in the game of baseball. That's not Shohei Ohtani, just because obviously pitching and hitting.
Mhm.
But give flowers to Bobby Witt. Obviously, he's supposed to be one of the best shortstops we've seen. He's lived up to the hype so far, and I think he's only going to continue to build on it. And if there's any year for him to really be in the MVP race, I think it's this year, to build off the Royals' success last year. Lindor, obviously, we already know his game, and Trey Turner as well. Gunnar Henderson at 5 feels like a crime for the season he put up last year, but it's just the fact of the matter. Corey Seager at 6. Obviously, we all know his game, home runs, him turning double plays with Simeon. Then Ellie De La Cruz at 7 could end up at 2 or even 1, depending on the season he has this year. Got to stay healthy. He's pretty much the heartbeat of the Reds moving forward, and he's got a lot of pressure on him. Obviously, being on the cover of the show as well puts a lot of pressure on you. But I think there are just a lot of things going right in Cincinnati right now, making a lot of small moves to make this franchise go back in the right direction. CJ Abrams, Willie Adames, and Volpe round out my top 10. And I think Adames at 9 could be a little too low, but new team, kind of going off of a few good years, going all the way to San Francisco. And I think it's just kind of interesting to see these guys in new teams. I don't like to rank them at a super high position just because we don't know what to expect there. But just missing Dansby, obviously very reliable, but had a down year last year in Chicago. Javi, I just threw it on there just as a joke because I think it's funny. Zach Neto out in LA. Now, I think he's a guy that could be a all-star this year that not too many people know about. He had a very solid year last year at the end of the year, and I think he will build on it this year and make the Angels somewhat fearable if Mike Trout can stay healthy.
All right, and as for my top shortstops, I got Bobby Witt at number one. I think, I mean, it's hard to put Mookie. I mean, obviously, everything about Mookie you said was correct, but he's just not as good at playing defensively at shortstop as the top three guys. That's why I'm gonna give Bobby Witt number one, Gunnar number two, and Lindor number three, and then I'll throw Mookie there at four, Corey Seager at five. I think Trey Turner was a little too high on your list. I mean, he only stole like 18 bags last year. When you're a speed guy, you got to strike out less and you got to steal more bases. Ellie De La Cruz, I mean, like you said, he could be up there as well. Fair spot for him with all that talent. I got Bo Bichette in my top 10, as well as Carlos Correa and Willie Adames as well.
Yeah, then moving to the outfield, we're going to break it down by position. Left fielders, Duran and Riley Green and Quan, I think are 1, 2, 3. Doesn't really matter the order. I think Duran just coming off of the better season of those two gets the top spot at 1, and I'm being a Tigers fan. And I love Riley Green with his game and what he can do. Green and Quan are probably better defensively, but Duran has a better arm than both those two guys. And Duran obviously has better power numbers. So that's why he's at number 1 for me. 4, Santander going to Toronto, I think is going to be a great fit. Not high expectations for him, but it's a great signing in Toronto. Profar heading back to Atlanta for it feels like the fifth time. I don't know how many times, but it seems like he's always just
Every
on
year.
Atlanta at least once a year. Um,
Mhm.
and he had a really good year for the Padres last year, and it's gonna be a great signing for the Braves because their outfield is loaded. You'll see why later because the other two guys are in my top 10 as well. Wyatt Langford, obviously young kid, playing great ball his first year in the bigs, and will continue to build on it. Tyler O'Neill, Ian
Like
Happ,
that.
Luke Raley, and Brian Reynolds round out the top 10. Just missed James Wood. I haven't seen enough of him yet to really put him in the top 10. I know he can be up here. He probably will be up here at the end of the year. But that's 7 through honestly 13 that are just missed. I think you could put any of those guys in there.
Yes, sir. All right. I got number one. I mean, we got the same one. I put James Wood at number three, which is crazy. It's a crazy difference, but I mean, these are projections, so I feel like it's valid. I mean, he's just the opposite field power. I mean, just the speed, field, everything. This guy can do it all. He's got the top five potential, so I'm gonna put him there. Why not? Stephen Kwan at number four. Santander, I also like that move as well. Brian Reynolds, just a every year you're gonna get the same player, an all-star. Wyatt Langford had a great rookie season. He had high expectations, so these expectations are going to continue to grow as he's playing better. So You're gonna have to watch out for that. Ian Happ, Tyler O'Neill, and Jurickson Profar round out my top 10. And yeah, Luke Raley missed my top 10. I think he was in your top 10, but other than that, I think we're both pretty close there.
And center field's probably one of the more loaded positions, like the shortstop position. Jackson Merrill at number one for me. It's hard to put him over Trout and Julio, but Julio just had a down year last year. Trout always hurt. I think I just got to put him there, at least going into this year. May not be that way at the end of the year if Julio can stay healthy and rebound from last year. He's probably going to be my number one. Michael Harris, Corbin Carroll, those two guys consistently, but Carroll had a really bad year last year. But what we saw his rookie year, I think he's going to find that happy medium and be a very solid player for the Diamondbacks for years to come. Bellinger going to New York is going to, I think, be one of the best moves of the offseason. With that short porch in right, I think Belly's going to just hit belly bombs almost every game. I think he's going to have a 40 plus home run season. It's going to be a big year
It's
for
definitely
Belly.
possible.
That Yankees lineup needs the power. He can play first too if the Goldschmidt thing doesn't work. So they can throw him there as well. Buxton, if he can stay healthy, he's definitely a top 10 outfielder. And then Parker Meadows, give him his flowers, what he's done for the Tigers in 1 year. I think he's going to be the key piece if the Tigers are going to be really good this year, because obviously he's great defensively. But if he can really stay consistently at the plate, this Tigers lineup is going to be deep and young for years to come. So they could be a team to watch out for, not just this year, because we saw what they did last year, beating the Astros, taking the Guardians to five in ALDS, and they're one game away from the ALCS appearance. So Tigers have a bright future. Dalton Varsho, kind of threw him on here. Wasn't really familiar with his game in Toronto. Knew him in Arizona, obviously, but it's been a few years. He's playing a little better and consistently better. And then O'Neill Cruz rounding out the top 10, moving from shortstop to the outfield. Obviously has a cannon of an arm, so
It's gonna be
definitely
interesting.
aren't going to want to run on him. But if he can figure it out at the plate, not always just swing for power every single time, use his speed.
You got to
Uh,
use that contact swing.
yeah, if he can honestly just put it in play more often than not, he might just beat it out.
Yeah, good rankings there. I got J Rod at number one. I think you got to put, yeah, I got to put Mike Trout at number two as well, just to show him that respect. And then I'll go with the young cat, Jackson Merrill, just a great player. And then Corbin Carroll, who had a really rough first half, but second half he turned it on. So I'm comfortable with keeping him in that top five, along with Michael Harris. Unfortunately, Byron Buxton is out of the top five, but he's got the talent to be in the top five. I totally agree with your Bellinger take. I got to keep Lou Bob at eight. I mean, that just the talent, terrible organization, terrible roster, but I mean, massive pop. So O'Neill Cruz at number nine, Parker Meadows at number 10. And yeah, that's about it. I just missed JJ Bleday in Miami. He's been playing better. And Dalton Varsho, like you said, getting better in Toronto. So
Then moving to right field, it seems like this is where all the superstars play in big cities, just because I don't know why, but that's the case. And you look at one through five, yeah, it makes sense. But then you have Churio at six, and I think there's a case where he could be in that top three, just because of that first rookie season, putting up those numbers and pretty much carrying the Brewers to a playoff appearance. Um, this kid's going to be legit for years to come. But until I can see a repeat performance of that, he's going to stay out of my top five just because of what that top five that I have now can do. Obviously, Judge MVP numbers, Soto MVP numbers, Acuna when healthy, top five player in league when he's healthy. Kyle Tucker, I think, is very underappreciated for a right fielder. Great defensively, obviously hits for power, can do all the things. But moving to Chicago could be a challenge for him, but I don't think so. I think he's still going to hit probably 30 plus home runs this year. Tatis, like Acuna, needs to stay healthy. If he can stay healthy, he's going to be fine out there in San Diego. Teoscar at seven kind of feels like a crime the way he's been playing these last few years. Then Lawrence Butler for the Athletics, not the Oakland Athletics, the Athletics. I think he's going to be their only bright spot this year, just because they got to have some good prospects that are coming up with all these trades they make at the deadline for all these guys. And Colton
yeah,
Cowser and Matt Wallner round out my top 10.
as for me, uh, I mean, I got Juan Soto number one, Aaron Judge number two, Acuna. I mean, other than I gotta put Soto over Judge, dude. I saw it in the postseason, and it's a little biased, but whatever. I got Jackson Chourio at number 6. I mean, we literally have the top 7 other than Juan Soto, Aaron Judge combo, Seiya Suzuki, Colton Cowser, Lawrence Butler. Same top 10 except for a little different order. Yeah, I think Seiya's. Wait, do we have him as a DH as well?
I think so. I think I do. Yeah, I have him as DH, but I mean, I think he's gonna be doing both just because of um, Tucker obviously joining the Cubs. So I think they're both gonna be splitting. So I think it's kind of fair to put him in both. And I guess since we're here, obviously Shohei's at one. Jordan at two, Brent Rooker at three. He's gonna be the other good spot for the Athletics this year, hitting wise. And then I think after that, any of these guys could be four. If if you want to go on home runs, you're probably gonna put Schwarber at four. If you want to go for defensively, you're gonna put Yelich at four. If you want to go for consistent hitting, you're probably gonna put Suzuki at four. And then if you just kind of want a mix of the middle, you're gonna kind of put Kerry Carpenter or Ozuna there. And Ozuna, when he can hit bombs, obviously he's probably number four. But I think any of these guys after four can really be at four.
Mhm.
Besides Stanton, because Stanton is slow and only hits bombs, so he's just at 10. So four through nine, I think if they're all having good kind of years, they definitely can make that case for the four spot.
Yeah, I got Kyle Schwarber. For me, I got Kyle Schwarber at 4, just the lead off home runs. I mean, why not? And I got Carey at 5. I mean, like it's your boy, so
Mhm.
give the Tigers some credit. I'm gonna do it. I'll give them some credit. Craig Carpenter's a beast, and then Christian Yelich at 6, Marcel, Seiya Suzuki, Jock Peterson, John Carlos Stanton. Basically the same rankings. I mean, just Shohei and Jordan, absolute dogs. But question: if Devers gets put here at DH, where are we ranking him?
Probably three.
All right.
I'd probably put
Yeah,
him
me
at
too.
three, maybe two over Jordan, just depending on, I guess, what if you're looking at overall, you got to put Jordan there. But if you look at playoffs, probably Jordan. But if you're looking at like, I don't know, if you look at defensively, I'd probably put Devers over him because Jordan's kind of a liability in the outfield because
Yeah,
he is slow. But I mean, I think you just still got to put Jordan there just because of the postseason experience and what he can do in the postseason. So it makes sense there. But obviously, no one's touching Shohei at one.
right. Completely agree there.
Yep, that's it. And we'll be back next time with our starting pitching, top 20 and top 10 relievers next time in the next video. And make sure you are subscribed to be up to date with all of our baseball stuff that we are going to put out. We're going to do our rankings, power rankings, and we're also going to do our predictions for the year for who's going to make the playoffs. And obviously, we're going to do our playoff bracket based on that as well. So we got a lot of baseball coming up here in the meantime. Spring training games actually start this week. I think the 22nd is the first spring training game, 22nd or 21st.
That.
So we got lots of baseball starting here for all those football fans looking for something new. You got NASCAR and you got baseball coming up. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. We're going to be putting out more baseball content this year. But until the next time, the Bench Buddies are out.